The verdict before Bihar result. Who is smiling? Who is in sorrow? Mahila and youth. New MY factor. Smaller parties, the kingmakers. Who benefits from high turnout? Decoding the exit poll verdict.
Hours to go for the first vote to be counted. What does it mean? Remember, Bihar has recorded its highest voter turnout since 1951. A record which has puzzled pollsters. It's a state where high voter turnout has sometimes meant a return of the incumbent. Often it's seen as a vote for change. Tomorrow's verdict will decide Bihar's fate in many ways. Is this going to be a vote for continuity for the longest-serving Chief Minister of the Hindi heartland, or will Bihar give a chance to a Yuva Mukhyamantri in 35-year-old Tejashwi Yadav?
Good evening, I'm Preeti Chaudhary. My colleague Maria is going to be joining us over the next 1 hour. Maria and I are going to get you the latest that's coming in cutting-edge data analytics, where we are going to deep dive into the numbers that have come only but yesterday and have queered the pitch. How have they queered the pitch, Maria? Which is really interesting, because when that last vote was cast 2 days ago, on the 11th, most exit polls came out giving a sweeping majority to the NDA. But yesterday, Access My India poll has queered the pitch. It's one of the most banked upon polls, sought after polls, and that poll seems to suggest that it's not going to be as easy for the NDA. Directionally, yes, they say NDA will form the government, but does show a tight contest. What we're going to do over the course of the next 2 hours, viewers, we're going to break down the various X factors of it, jump into micro data, analyze scenario after scenario, and also what really that high bumper voting turnout meant. Deep dive into the micro analytics of that, where it comes down to the women and the youth vote. Who does it favor? In the studio, with us is Javed Ansari. Maria, why don't you introduce our other guests?
Yes, so Sajjan Kumar, who has been traveling across Bihar, is also joining us as well. Sajjan and Javed Ansari, welcome to this broadcast. But first up, let me give you a sense of what does this actually mean. We have been speaking about the Access numbers. What does this mean? Let me give you a sense of what the Access My India is saying in terms of the numbers. How are the NDA parties, that is the BJP, the JDU, Chirag Paswan's LJP, the HAM and the RLM doing? Just look at the big numbers. This is how it is looking like. So it is 43% vote share for the NDA. That's why Nitish Kumar looks a happier man in this video. And also Mahagathbandhan stands at 41%, which is translating into somewhere between 98 to 118. Now let's take a look at the vote share as far as Jan Suraaj party of Prashant Kishor is showing it's about to just perhaps open its vote account. Jan Suraaj will get somewhere around 4% is what Access My India is projecting. As far as Nitish Kumar-led NDA is concerned, they are standing at 43%. Remember, this is a significant increase from what the NDA got in 2020. In 2020, both the Mahagathbandhan and the NDA were standing at 37% each. But because of the addition of Chirag Paswan's LJP in this number, it has gone up significantly, just as MJB seems to have expanded its base with the addition of two important parties, that is the VIP party, which is bringing the Malla vote or the Nishad voters from the larger EBC kitty, and also IP Singh's party. So this is how it looks like. As far as Prashant Kishor's Jan Suraaj party is concerned, it is likely to get somewhere below 5%. Does it mean that will he be able to register his party in Bihar? A big question. What is the future of his party, again, is a big question. But let me bring in Javed Ansari on that point. If we are looking at the vote share, this is very much in the margin of error, Javed Ansari. Plus minus 3% is in the margin of error. So it could go either ways, although when we look at the overall seat conversion or seat projected by Access My India, it's giving a different picture.
Indeed, it is. And not just Access by India, but even if you go by what your reporters have been saying. And I've had the benefit of sitting at home and watching closely following what reporters have been saying in their broadcasts. All of them point to a much closer contest than what is being predicted by most pollsters, barring, of course, Access My India. So it will make for an exciting finish. Perhaps if the results stay the way they are being projected, then it could mirror the outcome of 2020, where it was a close finish, just about 15 seats, which made all the difference. And this begs the question: if this was so close, and if Tejashwi and Mr. Nitish Kumar were both the spearheads, they were the ones on whose face this election was being fought, then why did their respective alliances not? Why did the India Alliance or Mahagathbandhan wait till the 11th hour to project Tejashwi? And why did the NDA fail to formally announce Mr. Nitish Kumar as the Chief Minister?
But, someone will call it a double-edged sword with what you just said. But what we're going to do is we're going to continue to get you the latest data that is coming in, what we've analyzed over the course of the next few hours. But I want to quickly, Maria, take a moment and introduce our panelists this evening to our viewers who are just about joining us. What you see on your television screen, viewers, is a 2% gap between the NDA and the Mahagathbandhan. Where it comes down to translation in seats, and we'll put out the translation of seats on what is the projection by Access of My India. Just switch to translation of seats, and you'd actually see in that data point there that it's just where the NDA is concerned, 121 to 141, and the MJB 98 to 118. If the scenario plays out where the NDA comes and meets its lower end and the MJB at an higher end, then we are in for a contest. Otherwise, it's game, set and match where it comes down to the NDA. Cutting across to our panelists, Muhammad Ali Ashraf Fatmi, Senior Leader, RJD and former Union Minister joining us. Sanjay Jaiswal will be with us shortly. Lok Sabha MP, BJP and former State President BJP Bihar. Rajat Sethi, political analyst, is with us. Javed Ansari continues to be with us in the studio. Sajjan Kumar, political analyst, is also with us. Let's cut across to our RJD guest, Maria, Muhammad Ali Ashraf Fatmi. Muhammad Ali, if you look at the numbers, they're so close yet so far. Even if these numbers hold directionally, they do give it to the NDA. What you would hope today is the projection meets the higher end of the MJB and the lower end of the NDA. Those are not good statistics to bank on.
No, in fact, you are not looking into the people who are living outside and the planned vote, I mean the migrant vote. They came in big number all over Bihar, and they voted for change. They don't want to go back to any other place other than Bihar. They want to be in Bihar, and they voted for Tejashwi for change. Because Tejashwi has...
फातमी साहब, आपने ये कहा कि ये वोट फॉर चेंज है और आप लोगों का पूरा कैलकुलेशन माइग्रेंट वोटर्स की तरफ जा रहा है, लेकिन अगर ओवरऑल मार्जिन देखा जाए उसमें परसेंटेज ऑफ वुमेन वोटर्स हाई है, और वुमेन वोटर्स अगर हम लोग बात कर रहे थे जमीन पर जाकर के महिलाओं से, उनका तो व्यू अभी भी वही है कि नीतीश कुमार ने ये दिया वो पूरा गिना देती हैं और यही बोलती हैं कि आरजेडी के टाइम पर जंगल राज था, सिक्योरिटी का इशू था।
कोई गरीब आदमी नहीं बोला होगा ये बात। ये अमीर लोग जो बीजेपी के वोटर हैं, लीडर हैं, वही इस बात को बोलते हैं। जो गरीब हैं वो जानते हैं कि लालू का राज, राबड़ी का राज, गरीबों का राज था, और गरीब लोग को उसमें उनका अधिकार और राइट मिला। वो था, वो जो पहला जो थी लड़ाई, वो सामाजिक न्याय की थी, अब आर्थिक न्याय की लड़ाई है।
चलिए वो तो कल पता चल जाएगा फातमी साहब, वो तो कल पता चल जाएगा when that last vote is counted कि किसकी लड़ाई है और कौन जीता इसमें। पर एक हमारे साथ बने रहिए, because ultimately viewers, I want to just cut across to, like I said, our election intelligence dashboard. We've been pointing out you have only one place to turn to when it comes to data analytics, and it is India Today. Because one thing, Maria and Javed, both of you in the studio with us, we've been discussing over the course of the last 24 hours, needs to look at very closely is the voter turnout. Is it a trend which is pointing towards pro-incumbency or anti-incumbency? And for the first time ever since, viewers, ever since independence, Bihar has not voted in the kind of bumper voting percentage that we have seen. So see right from there, 2010 to all the way back till 2025. It's 67% where the voter turnout is concerned. Now, let's micro-analyze this data where gender comes into question and project it vis-a-vis with what Access My India, and that's going to be our reference points for this bulletin, in terms of where gender comes into question, which side gender has tilted towards. The last time around, many thought it was the Mahila vote which had counted and made the NDA win. This time, some say that we are, possibly the vote was undercounted, the Mahila vote last time. Is it being overcounted this time? We'll get down to what Access My India has predicted, but let's look at the gender turnout there. And you see a whopping difference between the male and the female turnout where gender comes into question. And it's only the gap has been widening ever since 2010. This time, the maximum there, you can see a 9% difference where gender comes into question. And usually in Bihar, Javed, and we'll bring in our other guests as well, usually in Bihar is seen that when there is a very high voter turnout, that would mean that Sarkar badal rahi hai. There's anti-incumbency. But having said that, if that voter turnout comes in the form of women, which are about 9% higher than men, and we're only looking at gender, we're not looking at the youth factor right now, the NDA would say we have it in the bag because they've traditionally cultivated the Mahila vote where Nitish Kumar is concerned. Let's bring out the figures right now when it comes down to what Access My India predicted or projected, where the woman vote was concerned, and there lies the devil in the detail, Javed. 4% gap between the Mahagathbandhan and the NDA. NDA 4% more. Women have polled for the NDA, while the gap is just 1% where it comes down to men, and MGB has the advantage there.
Yeah, so conventional wisdom, and if the past is anything to go by, would suggest that usually the last turnout means that people have voted against the incumbent, voted against the sitting government. They want to vote out. That's what has happened largely. But in this case, there's been a surge as far as there's a big difference between the women voters. There's a huge surge as far as women voters are concerned, and even both empirical data as well as anecdotal evidence seems to suggest that women in larger numbers have voted for the NDA.
And Preeti, just an interesting
Let's pull out the
instance
data,
here.
Maria. Let's ask our producers to pull out the women data in terms of the gender, at least what was projected by Access My India. Let's pull that data out, which actually shows that there's a 4% gap when it comes down to women voting for the NDA vis-a-vis the MGB, and a 1% lead of MGB Mahagathbandhan when it comes down to men. Let's put out that data first. Over to you, Maria.
Yes, so it's rather interesting that since Nitish Kumar came to power in 2005 December, there has been a trend of rising voter turnout. 2010, it goes up to 52%. 2015, increase of almost like 5% from 2010. And 2020, again, it's a surge of 2%. And every time there has been a surge, it has also meant the return of the incumbent. So, as we have been saying, it's very confounding when it comes to Bihar, because when pollsters say that they know about the state purely in terms of arithmetic, Bihar speaks about chemistry. And when you speak about only the Mahila voter, this time Bihar is speaking about the Yuva voters. Sajjan Kumar, your thought on this? Because, when we look at the Access data purely on what they have put out in the context of the Yuva voters, it becomes very interesting because the first time Yuva voters are all moving towards Tejashwi Yadav, while Mahila vote is consolidating firmly behind Nitish, as they have been doing in 2 consecutive elections. I mean, in in 2010, 2015, 2020, the entire women voter has been the reason behind Nitish Kumar's return.
Yes, Maria, going by the Access My Data, there seems to be one novelty in this election, and that is about directionally opposite trends among the youth and women,
And
right?
yes, yes.
Yes, directionally. Earlier, it used to be directionally both youth and women will vote more to the incumbent or for change. There may be a degree of difference, but for the first time, we are witnessing that while more and more women are voting, that was obvious on the ground also, reflected in the data also, for the incumbent, while the youths are in a slighter degree higher voting for change. Now, that means every household is witnessing a rupture in terms of voting preference on the basis of gender. And that's very interesting because usually the conventional wisdom and ground experience has been that voting decisions are taken at household level, primarily in a rural society. Bihar is 90% rural. And therefore, we were expecting that not only more women will vote for the incumbent because of policy outreach, but they would also become the anchor of voting decision at their household level. Something which we do not see happening. And that is why this election is giving a very rupturous voting pattern on the basis of gender, which means that not only male and female are voting in different directions, it also means that at many household level you find that women are acquiring some sort of autonomy vis-a-vis the male counterpart, and that is really interesting.
One point I'll ask Fatmi Saab now. Fatmi Saab, यहाँ पर अगर युवा की चर्चा की जाए तो एक्सेस माई इंडिया ये बता रहा है कि जो फर्स्ट टाइम वोटर्स हैं 18 से 19 जो उनका एज ग्रुप है उसमें 46% जो आपका लगभग 50% के करीब आपकी तरफ वोट आ रहा है।
जी, और यही वोटर है जो अपने माँ को भी अपनी बहनों को भी कन्विंस कर रहा है कि आप चेंज के लिए वोट कीजिए बिहार के अंदर। तो ये आप सिर्फ आप ये समझ रही हो कि महिला सिर्फ सिंगल एक कॉज के लिए वोट कर रही है, वो गलत है। वो चेंज के लिए भी वोट कर रही है। और मैं आपसे बताऊं, आप ने अगर वॉच किया हो तो इस इलेक्शन में जो तेजस्वी के वोटर है, स्पेशली जो समझा जाता है कि उस ग्रुप में ये वोट गिरेगा, जरा उसका भी थोड़ा आप जो वोट गिराया है उन्होंने उसका परसेंटेज निकलवा के देख लीजिए। आपको मालूम पड़ेगा कि पिछले लोकसभा के मुकाबले में तकरीबन 10% वोट इन लोगों ने ज्यादा गिराया। और यही कारण है कि सीमांचल के अंदर परसेंटेज ऑफ वोट काफी बढ़ गया है। अगर आप दूसरे इलाके को लीजिए और
जहां ज्यादा बढ़ा है जहां कम हुआ है उसको कैसे डिसाइफर करना है वो बहुत मुश्किल हो जाता है क्योंकि ये मल्टी लेयर्ड कॉन्टेस्ट है। पर आप कह रहे हैं जो 19% सर मैं अभी उसी की बात कर रही हूं कि जो प्रोजेक्शन है एक्सेस में इंडिया का प्रोजेक्शन है 18 to 29 years of age, उसमें बहुत सारे नए वोटर हैं, उसमें आपकी महागठबंधन की 19% लीड है। ये मैं एक्सेस माई इंडिया वो हम we can play those graphics there where there is a 19% lead of the youth between the age group of 18 to 29 years for in favor of the Mahagathbandhan. That is what's projected vis-a-vis the NDA. I want to bring in Rajat Sethi into this conversation. Rajat Sethi, the RJD would have us believe that this 19% will weigh over and, compensate for that extra 4% that you are getting in terms of the woman vote. Do you concur?
Preeti ji, wishes can be horses till tomorrow morning, and we can all be riding it. But there is no point doing a guess game. We can all have a nice sleep and get up early in the morning so that we can all be in the studio and deliberate over it. But having said that, let us only go and understand what are the fundamental things which don't change. First thing that doesn't change, and it has been tested by several researchers, is that higher voter turnout is necessarily anti-incumbency. There is absolutely no scientific data to say that higher polling percentage is necessarily because of anti-incumbency. So we should not even delve on that question. It is as good as the other way around it is. So that is point number one. And several people around the world have looked at various demographies and kept this. Second thing, you're trying to make a claim around youth. And this is again going by Access My India data. what we have understood is that yes, youth and the first-time voters, just like in 2024 election, the youth, the first-time voters, this age bracket between 18 and 29, have not seen UPA years. They've not seen Lalu years. They have just heard about it, and it just has gone beyond their even realm of imagination. Forget about a lived experience. And this is where they don't understand what a Lalu Raj or what an RJD Raj is going to look like. Apparently, this is where they've gone in with a promise that Tejashwi has brought into the table, that he will give jobs. And I think job remains an issue number one, agenda number one for everybody who's coming out of school, coming out of college. And I believe they have been swayed and they've been successfully fallen for that narrative.
It's interesting, Rajat. We are talking about unemployed and employed youth, and that's where, again, Tejashwi is scoring to NDA. And I'll ask the producers to now play that on our big screen here. When we look at this data, let's take a look at this data, which is now again being projected by Access by India. In terms of the unemployed youth, Mahagathbandhan is likely to get around 49%. Just look at this data. 49% that's coming from the unemployed youth. Does it mean that they believe in what all of us were questioning, that from where will Tejashwi Yadav get that 2.5 crore government jobs? That was the big question that was being asked by opposition and by all of us, that have you made that calculation? Tejashwi, did you do that calculation? I'd asked him myself in that interview that I did. So there is that gap of 15% where the unemployed youth are believing that Tejashwi Yadav perhaps will be able to deliver that number. Again, if you look at the students, Tejashwi is scoring a significant number, 15% gap between the NDA and the Mahagathbandhan in that category as well. But if you move towards the skilled laborers, skilled professionals, and even the labor, that's again the gap. So overall, if we were to look at it, Preeti, and you'll put out the other set of graphics, that it's becoming clear that in among the youth, Tejashwi Yadav's Mahagathbandhan have more traction. I did meet a number of youth from the Bhumiyar community. It is always believed that the upper caste will not give Tejashwi Yadav a chance. They were ready to believe his promise of 2.5 crore government jobs. Just look at this number again. We have been saying, is Bihar a pro-incumbent state? Is Bihar a state that believes in status quo-ish? We do not believe in too many changes. There is a state which gave 15 years to Lalu Yadav, 20 years to Nitish Kumar. Just look at this. 1967 onwards, incumbent Congress government voted out. That is the percent, only 7%. 1980, you have the Janata Party government voted out, 6.8%. 1990, that is when the era of stability in many ways begins in Bihar, when Lalu Yadav's tenure begins and the tenure of Janata Dal. Preeti, over to you. The big numbers again on Bihar's per capita income.
Right. You know, it's interesting, viewers, and we're going to hark back. So Maria just gave you, the data points in terms of whether a surge in voter turnout really means a pro-incumbency or anti-incumbency. But right before that, with what we've been discussing, the Mahila vote and the youth vote, it's a double-edged sword this time. The MOI factor has changed, cliche stand into Mahila and youth. And if the Mahila edge belongs and is standing besides the NDA as per projected data and the youth with where it comes down to the Mahagathbandhan, the beauty of our election intelligence dashboard is that in terms of data slicing, it can give us greater context. We're talking about a state where 60% of Bihar makes less than 6,000 rupees a month. So just chew on the fact that if a woman per household has been given 10,000 rupees, what that could actually mean. But that woman who makes that 10,000 rupees is also a mother of an unemployed youth. Just look at the per capita income and you'd understand, why there are layers between layers when it comes down to this election. Income below 40,000 per annum, 81 seats out of 243 seats. The income on these seats largely stands at 40,000 rupees per annum per household. Last time around, NDA 153 out of those seats, MGB just 27. Income between 40 to 50,000, 113 seats. Last time NDA 150 and the MJB 57. High 49 seats where income above 50,000 per annum, 19 and 30. Now, look at this in context, viewers, where you have the NDA where the income is below 40,000 rupees. So there is a trust factor. So will that 10,000 rupee play in Sajjan Kumar, which has been given to the Mahila, or will the restive or the restless youth vote matter and count more?
Preeti, if you go by the numbers, certainly the most poor segment, as the data also shows, be it about the Mahadalits, be it about the EBCs, right? They have been a constituency nurtured by Nitish Kumar. So this is one. So directional clarity, as your political intelligence data shows, is there in favor of the incumbent when it caters to the lowest economic strata, right? Two, will the 10,000 scheme, Jivka Didi scheme will turn into a positive momentum for incumbent or not? Certainly it is going, because mind it is not one of the scheme, because it has a background, it has a trajectory. Starting from 2006, within 1 year of coming to power, you start having multiple policy outreach to the women, be it about the local body election seats being reserved to the extent of 50%, in police constabulary 35%, and then you have to the girls' school children, and thereby continuation of all sort of things, coupled with the perception that law and order flank is
that
better.
the Mahila vote will cut through the restless youth factor. And that would mean a clear edge to the NDA if we look at cumulative data points that we are picking up, correct?
Precisely, because the gap you see on the gender plank outweighs the gap on the youth plank. Even if we go by Axis My India data, right? It overweighs, and the category of Mahila is way more than that of youth, right? They are 50% of the electorate, and you have 4% edge among the 50% of the electorate. Certainly, it outweighs in terms of the scale the youth factor. So even if Mahagathbandhan, going by this data, is ahead in terms of youth.
But I tend to agree with that. But Maria, I want to bring you in because it's interesting, and we'll bring in Rajat and Javed as well. But when you just hark back to on-ground experience, I actually met a couple where the husband, who is a migrant worker, came back from his village, and he says कि हम नहीं जाएंगे इस बार, पलटू कुमार हैं, कभी इधर कभी उधर, इस बार हम MGB, हमको नहीं पसंद. The wife, who was agreeing with him on every point, turned around and said, क्यों नहीं जाएंगे? So you can sense it on ground.
Yes. But again, as we have been saying, Preeti, there is that counterbalance, and that is the reason why, despite the castes groups very much almost defined, if we look at the caste arithmetics, it's this gender play which is making this election perhaps more interesting, which is also leading to this, what is being seen as a close contest, and a very, very close contest. Javed Saab, you know, the fact is that Nitish Kumar has nurtured this constituency, which we call the women of Bihar. And the youth, when we look at the numbers, the unemployed youth going with Tejashwi's promise of, 2.5 crore government jobs, he did reach out to the Jivika Didis with that promise of 30,000 rupees per month, and also saying that their job will become permanent. But it appears that women are still of the opinion that one in hand is better than two in bush, because that's more of a promise. They are beneficiaries of Nitish Kumar's schemes, which began way back in 2006. So this 10,000 rupees is more like a top-up, more like, which I say that, it's almost like trying to do away with the fatigue around Nitish Kumar's aura and persona, rather than being seen as a freebie. I don't call it a freebie.
Well, Maria, you're spot on as far as the women voters are concerned. Yes, they see in Nitish Kumar somebody who has protected their interests, who has worked consistently. In his first term, he provided cycles for young school children. Then he banned then came in the liquor prohibition, and now comes in the issue of rupees 10,000. To say that 10,000 was not a factor is living in denial. And when money in hand as against something that you have promised, which may or may not come true, it's
And it
it's
was
anybody's guess.
translating. I
Anybody.
mean, we are an eyewitness to that. We have seen women who had received 10,000 rupees and a few days later they had gone and bought goats. They were running this little thela, so it was income generating, Rajat Sethi. That's where I think Tejashwi Yadav, despite his promises and outreach to women, and I've been speaking to the RJD war room people, they were of the opinion that there was a lot of outreach which was carried out to the women of Bihar. That seems to be not translating as much.
So there is, the politicians are facing this hangover of Maharashtra. The way the electoral field was swept away under their feet, and they still are trying to, still come out of that shock. And I believe this is where preemptively Tejashwi and the Congress party thought of making outreaches. They tried doing a post facto commitment that, yes, we will give you 3 times what has been given. But the similar thing was done even by the Congress, didn't work out. But also look at the flip point when 2.5 crore jobs was promised by Tejashwi. Even the NDA had to come about and say that we will also give you 1 crore. Even that didn't have an impact. My simple point is that any post facto, once somebody takes the lead in asserting and setting the agenda, that sticks with that entity, no matter how many times the other ones wants to do a catch
Rajat,
up.
you're right. No, it's a constituency which has been cultivated, especially where Bihar is concerned, by Nitish Kumar. And a lot of women that we did meet also had that affinity where, we can now call it the Nemo effect, where Prime Minister Modi is concerned. But Rajat, look at that 19%, because we are trying to juxtapose the woman vote, which clearly is working for the NDA, and the youth vote, which, as projected by, Access My India, between 18 to 29, most of them, a lot of them first-time voters, which there's a 19% gap in favor as projected for the Mahagathbandhan. In all of this, Rajat, even though, I know you're not a big fan of Prashant Kishor, he's been given a total vote share of 4%, but the micro data in that, with what Pradeep actually, touched on, that 3.5% is actually pulling away the youth upper caste vote. Would you think that could also be a deterrent?
100%. There is no doubt about it. See, pick the issue on which Prashant Kishor actually hit the streets. The singular issue was BPSC issue. When BPSC students were protesting on the streets, he tried to champion that cause. So he was seen somewhere there. So whatever little vote share that Prashant Kishor is able to attract is this upper caste youth, which is not getting employed, is desperate to climb up the economic ladder, and that desperation is creating that pull.
And the youth, Rajat, that would have never voted for the RJD, but has found an option today in a Prashant Kishor.
So this is the reason why BJP was also very wary of Prashant Kishor, and while Prashant Kishor was attacking Samrat Chaudhary and the BJP wasn't attacking with the same vigor to Prashant Kishor, because if you attack PK more and more, he becomes a potent third front and takes away more votes, more seats, or more votes out of the NDA, which doesn't serve the purpose of the NDA. And this was a singular reason why BJP played it low and allowed the megaphones of both the RJD on one side and Congress on one side and Narendra Modi on the other side to occupy the electoral space and let it drown out. And this is where Prashant Kishor and Jan Suraaj wasn't seen in the last 10-15
Maria's going to take some more graphics, but Maria, let's introduce Rajdeep Sardesai is with us. Rajdeep, the last half hour, we've been, of course, trying to decode the voter turnout, the bumper voter turnout, anti-incumbency favoring or pro-incumbency, and also the micro-detailing, Rajdeep, of the Mahila youth factor. Where do you stand on it?
Before that, I must say, Rajdeep, the OG of election coverage, there's nobody who can come close to you, sir. I've seen you since 2005, and it's been 20 years. You continue to enamor, and there is always a lesson every time you're on ground zero.
No, you're being very kind, Maria. By the way, you saw me when I had already become middle-aged. आपने हमको हमारी जवानी में देखना चाहिए था. ये तो आप 2005 की बात कर रहे हैं. Ironically, the first election I did for TV was Bihar 1995. The first election I ever did was...
Rajdeep, Javed is also with us. Javed is also with us, and he's saying he remembers you in your Javed.
That's right.
Rajdeep, we go back a long time.
Achha, chalo. And 1988 was the first election I covered, which was an interesting one, 88-89, a municipal election where the BJP and Shiv Sena came together for the first time. So much water has flowed under the bridge. But to answer your question about this turnout, I've been looking at history. If you look at history, there have been 5 elections that have been won by the party in the opposition when the turnout in Bihar has gone up. So this would suggest to some that a high turnout usually indicates anti-incumbency. The last time this happened in a way was 2015, but that was a unique election where Nitish and Lalu came together to take on the might of the BJP and won. There is no empirical evidence in this country to suggest that high voter turnouts suggest anti-incumbency or low voter turnout suggests pro-incumbency. All that used to be talked about 30 years ago. It no longer is. I think what you have is a much more empowered electorate, an electorate that actually does believe that their vote makes a difference. What is true of India is the more affluent you are, the less inclined you are to vote. So a Malabar Hill, for example, in Mumbai doesn't vote as much as, let's say, a distant suburb of Mumbai or even Dharavi will vote. In Bihar, I think, if you look at these numbers, you will see that in rural areas in particular, people have come and voted in large numbers. Patna has among the lowest voter turnout, 55%. But just go into rural Bihar and the voter turnout is all exceeding 70%. Now, it's clear that women have come out in large numbers, but so have men. You see, what is making this election complicated, it's not as if only women have come out in large numbers. Men have come out in large numbers, Yuva have come out in large numbers. If the exit polls of the likes of Pradeep Gupta...
We've detailed what you're speaking of into the Mahila vote, which traditionally stands with the NDA, and what has been projected by Pradeep Gupta's numbers, a 4% advantage there to the NDA. The youth, especially where it comes down to 18 to 29 age group, a 19% advantage to the Mahagathbandhan. Who do you think will prevail between the two?
Look, my own belief is youth also includes women. So it's not that everyone between the age of 18 to 29 is male. That's one thing that's very clear. I believe that the youth vote tends to be a little more split. And we've seen that in the past because the youth, some are very angry and therefore because of lack of jobs may well vote against the government. Some are restless. But there are also youth that we've seen who tend to vote along caste identities. There is some evidence to suggest that when it comes to women, there is an increasing possibility of gender trumping caste. It may not be immediately visible, but if you look anecdotally as well as through empirical evidence of 2015 and 2020, when there were when women voters really asserted themselves, go back actually to 2010, Nitish Kumar could not have won 2010 with the kind of majority he did, over 200 seats, unless gender and indeed other issues trumped caste. In 2015, there was a backward consolidation versus forward. In 2020 is where we saw splintering on all counts. Now, is 2025 mirroring 2020 as some opinion polls suggest? My own view is because women have shown an inclination to vote for Nitish Kumar to a greater extent than his competition, Nitish Kumar stands to gain from a higher woman voter turnout. Let me add one last point there. Just go through all the elections of the last 10 years. Barring Arvind Kejriwal in Delhi earlier this year, which is a small city-state, every election where the women have voted for one side has tended to be the winning side. You just have to go through the history of the last 10 years. And when there is an 8.8% higher woman turnout, and actually even in absolute numbers, 4.5 to 5 lakh more women have voted, I would be tempted to suggest that that Mahila vote is what gives the NDA confidence today. And it is really that 10,000 I maintain that made a huge difference in a state like Bihar. Now, Yuva have also come out to vote in large numbers, so have the migrants. But our polls seem to suggest that that vote has not gone to Prashant Kishor. Had Prashant Kishor got a larger chunk of vote, then this election becomes even more interesting. And I think we will have to wait and see whether that happens. The other, one more point, Muslim women, Yadav women, by all indications, are voting for the Mahagathbandhan. There is no gender there. It is, I think, beyond the frozen caste identities where the churning takes place in Bihar, Dalits, EBCs, non-Yadav OBCs. That's where I believe the woman vote will make a difference this time.
Rajdeep, stay with us. Maria is going to take us through the next set of data. Go ahead, Maria.
And it's interesting, Rajdeep, as you point out, that caste remains frozen in the context of Bihar. So when it is 43% vote share, which is being projected by Access My India for the NDA, it is clearly coming from the fact that Chirag Paswan, who was not with NDA in 2020, has shifted this side, and he is making that contribution of 6%. Just as Tejashwi Yadav-led Mahagathbandhan is going up from 37% that they had in 2020 to 41% now because of the contribution that is coming in from VIP party and also IP Guptas. Let's look at this. It becomes important because, we have been talking about Nishads in particular and the Teli. Those two groups, it was largely sensed that they will turn towards Mahagathbandhan because of the announcement of the Deputy Chief Minister in Mukesh Sahni. Look at the percentage which is going towards the NDA. So it is very clear that even despite that announcement, Mahagathbandhan is still not able to dent significantly in that group, which is roughly around 4%. So this is the breakdown which is being projected. Again, this 5% which is coming in from the Paswans, consolidating, this is Chirag Paswan factor, firmly with the NDA at 64%. We have been talking about the Ravidas. Rajdeep was talking about the Mahadalits. This again is a factor which is, not much of a gap between the two. It's just 4%. Ravidas in all are standing at 5%. As expected, 68% Kurmis with Nitish Kumar firmly because he comes from that caste. Let's look at another set of slide here. This is again, as we have been looking at the big picture, the Brahmins as expected to go with the NDA. This again, Koiri Kushwaha, 4%. We are looking at the larger from the EBC. We have brought down these groups further broken down because the EBCs in Bihar, which is the extreme backward classes, are around 26%, minus the 10%, which is of the Pasmanda Muslims, which is the backward among the Muslims, which is again a constituency which was created by Nitish Kumar when he came to power for the first time in 2005. So again, if you look at the numbers, not much of a surprise. Caste remains frozen in Bihar. It's largely the factor of the Mahila and the Yuva. Rajdeep, so I'll bring you again here. Okay, again, let's take a look at some more smaller parties. We have been talking about them. Is there some further split among them? So just look at this number. MIM did well, particularly in the Simanchal belt in 2020. They won 5 seats, of which 4 MLAs had switched to the Mahagathbandhan after the victory. And their projected vote share this time around is going to be 5%. Jan Suraaj somewhere around 4%.
There's an error there. I think it has to be switched. It was 5% in 2020 and 1%
then 1%
projection.
here.
That's
so when we look at the VIP again, it's in 2020. Remember, VIP was with the NDA. This time they are with Mahagathbandhan. They are likely to win somewhere between the same number of seats, 3 to 5. Preeti, over to you. But before that, let me ask a quick question to Rajdeep. And then, Rajdeep, caste remains frozen. So it's clear that despite all the calculations, Tejashwi Yadav is not able to move beyond the traditional caste groups, despite that experiment that he had in naming the Deputy Chief Minister in Mukesh Sahni.
You see, caste is frozen and yet not frozen. Let's be very clear and let me explain how. 2015, Nitish Kumar, when he aligned with Lalu, the caste groups that were supporting him also shifted with him and were happy to join hands with Lalu Prasad. No one spoke then of Jungle Raj. You just mentioned someone who's an interesting figure. Indrajit Prasad Gupta, or IP Gupta as he's known, and his party, the Indian Inclusive Party, IIP, sounds very well. Now, his claim has been that he wants a separate quota, possibly within the scheduled caste, if not among the EBCs, for his Tanti Pan community, a quota within a quota. It's a small community. Some figures give it about 1.5, maximum 2%, but it's spread out over a large part of the Gangetic Plain. These are people who grow vegetables. Now, someone like IP Gupta, can he bring his vote bank with him? Because every 1% adds up. When you're looking at the Access by India poll, the gap is only 2%. If
Rajdeep, I
IP Gupta
apologize,
can
I'm
bring
coming
his
in,
caste group
and
with
you
him,
can come in right in 20 seconds, because waiting for us, and he's on a clock, is another Gupta ji. IP Gupta might not be projected very well in the figures that we see in terms of the vote percentage, but Pradeep Gupta will hope that he has his numbers on the ball, on the dot, when tomorrow that last vote is counted. Pradeep Gupta, welcome to India Today. Thank you for joining us. I know, you're on multiple channels. Every slot is booked for you. But first up, Pradeep Gupta. I'll ask you one question. Rajdeep, Maria, do come in next. But Pradeep ji, yesterday you had said, when I had asked you, what is a bigger possibility? The lower limit in terms of seat share of what the NDA you have projected, and the higher limit of the MGB, or the other way around? You said mean le lo, 108 MGB, 130 NDA. Do you still stand by that?
Yes, I do stand by that. And the possibility we are discussing here, so I would quote 5 by 95, 5 for the 121 and 95 for 141. It will be somewhere between these things. And most importantly, where it can go up and where it can go down. This time, at least, we have one simple calculation, which is, if Prashant Kishor secure more than 4% or more than 6% vote, then this 121 is quite possible. If he secure 2%, half of what we projected, then 160 plus is quite possible. Let me put it this way. For NDA, 160 plus for NDA in that scenario.
Rajdeep, Maria?
Now,
So
what happens,
Yes, please, go
Mr.
ahead.
Gupta, if Prashant... No, my point is, what happens, Pradeep Gupta, if Prashant Kishor actually polls more than what you have suggested? Because he's a new party, and predicting the vote share of a new party is injurious to health. What happens if he gets 8 or 9%? You're giving him 4 to 5%. What if he gets 8 to 9%? Then what happens? And why?
Then, yeah, that's what I'm saying. If in that case, NDA tally will be somewhere near to my lower tally, which is 121 seats. And why I'm coming to that? Because large chunk, whatever he's likely to secure the votes, so whatever 100 votes comes, is coming from 70 up to 75% coming from NDA caste group, which is the Bhumiyar, Rajput, Brahmins. This is coming from. So this is the precisely reason why the moment Prashant Kishor start scoring high, it is more denting to the NDA, less to the Mahagathbandhan. In fact, benefit for the Mahagathbandhan, because MY, which is the larger constituency for the Mahagathbandhan, holding 32% of that chunk, the MY chunk, only 1 and 2% is likely to get among those community. Only 1 to 2%, and the Muslim 2% is also from that Jokihat.
Can I?
Which one is where the Muslim candidate is contesting, and that is the one seat which is you can say that is likely to win.
No, the reason I'm pushing you on that, if I look at Prashant Kishor's candidate list, he actually gave tickets to all communities. He didn't give tickets only to upper caste. He actually tried to make himself lead a rainbow coalition, as he called it. Extremely backward caste, Dalits, Muslims, Yadavs, all given tickets. You're telling us that Prashant Kishor is only getting his votes from upper caste, irrespective of who his candidate is. Am I correct?
No,
Largely from upper caste.
You are partially correct. I am not adding word only. You are adding word that only. I am saying larger votes is coming from the Bhumiyars, Rajput and upper caste. Larger, only no.
Pradeep ji, my question would be about your
Okay, so
projection
you're
with
saying-
regards
Yeah,
to
go
the
ahead.
Yuva. Please go ahead.
Pardon?
Yes, my question would be with regards to the Yuva percentage which you have projected. It's
Yeah.
coming to roughly around a gap of 15%, going up to 16 as well in certain age groups, 18 to 19 to 20 to 29.
No. See, you'll have to see
So
the
are you sensing?
representation.
Yes.
No.
So my question is,
I'll try and explain you and your viewers also how to
Yes.
read this data, particularly age group. You have to see the representation value as well. So if you see 18 to 19, which is the first group, only representation is 2%.
2%, right?
22%. So there you see the gap of about 9 percentage point. 9. It's not that NDA is not getting any vote. 37 to 46. Now coming to 20 to 29, where that represents 22% of the total chunk, the total vote cast. 22%, where the gap is much narrowed down, 44 to Gathbandhan and 37 to NDA. Then you have rest of the age group, which is 30 plus, which contributes 76% in all these age group where NDA is getting large.
Pradeep ji, one final question before we let you go. One final question before we let you go, which will, once again, I'll come back to that point. You are saying that the fate of Mahagathbandhan tomorrow lies on how well Prashant Kishor does. And that is the only scenario. The only scenario in which... Tell us the other scenarios there. Because you seem to suggest...
Another scenario is definitely there, which is the incremental voter turnout. Now, 10 percentage points last time 57 to this time approximately 67 is too big a number. Now, this is happening first time ever. And Prashant Kishor phenomena or the party is also emerging first time ever. These are the two very facts. We do not have the historical, we call it algorithm available to us. And these are the two things we don't know. This 4% or 10 percentage point incremental vote. What is the combination of that incremental vote? I am talking about the youth. I am talking about the caste. I am talking about the Mahila is very well known. I mean, that there is no problem for Mahila to gauge whether this 10% incremental, how much Mahila is there. Mahila is given by the election commission also. So that is easier to calculate in our calculation. So this is what is my submission. And thank you, Preeti. You are wearing today our Axis My India house color purple.
Sir, I'll wear it tomorrow also if
Pradeep Gupta has put an escape clause. He has given today the alibi. In case his numbers are wrong, and I'm not saying they will be, in case they are wrong, it's because they misread the turnout. Am I correct, Pradeep? That is the only real scenario, the composition of the turnout. If Yuva have come in larger numbers, the Mahagathbandhan has some kind of a chance. If they have not, then it's game, set and almost match to NDA. Am I correct broadly?
Broadly, yes. And second is the Prashant Kishor thing, because that is also first time ever, right? So that is also another point. And Rajdeep, you particularly, Rajdeep Sardesai particularly, has to decide how and when to call poll right or wrong. That is very important.
I will call it. You have given such a broad range this time.
Rajdeep, there are cases, and I mean, whatever suits to, I say, whoever the commentator is. Now, you tell me how it is fair to say that BJP was projected to get 400 seats and they secured 240 seats. Arey bhai, NDA was projected 370 to 400 seats and NDA secured the 293 seats. How this is fair to say so? And NDA formed the government where the other... Then you say horribly wrong. What is this analogy, horribly wrong? I do admit when we are horribly wrong, which is the Haryana election. We are horrible. Not a single...
Okay, I'm going to leave it there.
I'm telling you,
Preeti, Maria, you can take it
you,
over.
if we have projected 141 for the NDA, and if NDA secure 160 plus, you will say Pradeep Gupta is wrong.
Chaliye, Pradeep ji, I know you have other channels to go for.
No, I won't say that.
You have other channels to go for. So what Rajdeep, more or less, Pradeep ji said is, it's NDA's game, set and match, but two caveats, two factors. One is Prashant Kishor and the other one is voter turnout, which has been unprecedented.
Yes. All right.
Let's leave it at that. Thank you for joining us. We're going to go into a quick break. Back. Yes, go ahead, Rajdeep. Make your point. Make your point, Rajdeep.
Make your point,
There is
Rajdeep.
a song.
We love to hear you.
A song.
We love to hear you.
Rote hue. Pradeep Gupta and I have a love for Hindi music. Pradeep Gupta के लिए गाना रोते हुए आते हैं सब हंसता हुआ जो जाएगा वो मुकद्दर का सिकंदर Because you see, he's either going to cry tomorrow or he's going to laugh. But मुकद्दर
going
का
to
सिकंदर
dance.
है, who knows what
Going
tomorrow
to dance
brings.
with Rajdeep Sardesai.
अच्छा, ना,
But Pradeep ji, now you have
चलिए,
to answer.
okay,
huh?
I will do it.
You have to answer. 1 second, Rajdeep. Let him also rebut in a song. जाते जाते क्या rebuttal होगा गाने पे?
अरे गाने पे रीबटल क्या होगा? जो राजदीप ने कहा सही है, हकीकत, दैट्स द आई मीन ट्रूथ ऑफ द लाइफ, कि रोते
Life,
हुए
yes.
हंसते और हंसते हुए जाएंगे, और हंसते हुए प्रदीप गुप्ता जरूर जाएगा. दिस मच आई कैन टेल यू फॉर श्योर.
अरे sir, nobody is
Let's
going
I've
anywhere.
never
We'll
ever
see you
had any
tomorrow.
problem in life.
We'll
Real
see you tomorrow.
Sikandar tomorrow, we'll see
I'm
that.
blessed by God that I have never ever had any kind of problem whatsoever. Whenever I
Sir.
feel bad, we could have done better. That is where I feel, some kind of a disappointment. Otherwise, I have no problem at all.
Chaliye sir, we'll see you in all your colors, purple especially tomorrow. Thank you for joining us.